Hello and namaste to whoever may be watching, wherever you may be watching, at whatever time you may be watching. It is me, your unveiled Coach Nails, coming at you, and I have something on my mind that I wanted to share with you, just something that I've gathered from some of the lessons that I've encountered and some of the lessons that I've been reminded of. So it's a little bit of old and a little bit of new, and if you've listened to me at all, then you will probably hear some semblance of things that I've said before, but that's because I really harp on it, and it really is at the core of my practice as a certified life and relationship coach. It is at the core of my practice as a psychoanalyst, basically everything that I do in the mental health field. So without further ado, I have a question for you. Are you ready? Yeah? Okay. My question for you is this. What are you here to do? All right. Yes, it sounds like a big, huge existential question, but there's a lot of practical and functional and foundational and fundamental, it's a lot of F's, applications and pieces to that. What are you here to do? And if you know the answer to that question, where are you at in terms of doing it? Are you one of the people that's walking around here doing what you feel you should be doing? Doing what you feel is on your quote-unquote schedule to do? Are you doing things according to your biological clock? Are you doing things according to this kind of nebulous prescription of what success is in the general sense? Are you doing it according to your own personal sense of what success is? And if so, how is that working out for you? Are you happy? Do you have a sense of peace? Is what you are doing coming from a place of love? Is what you're doing coming from a sense or generating a sense of satisfaction or a sense of fulfillment? These are the types of questions that I asked myself when I began piecing myself back together after a very dark period in my life. It is the same set of questions, same battery of questions that I asked myself in order to determine what type of practice I wanted to establish, and that was one that was based on openness and honesty, one that was guaranteed, the one that was generated on not being able to feel a sense of guilt or shame for any past occurrences, but going back to investigate them and figuring out exactly what lesson I was supposed to learn to that in order to have me come out of that being a more grounded and a more efficient and a more genuine individual than I was when I went through them. So when I speak about what you're here to do, yes, I'm talking about purpose in general, but I'm also talking about figuring out your design in order to get you to that purpose. What do I mean by design? Some of you out there are naturally very, very strong. Some of you out there are naturally very fast. Some of you out there are naturally excellent cooks, artists. Some of you are excellent with figures and money and taxes and figuring out codes. Some of you are great at interpreting the law. Some of you have fantastic senses of memories. In all of those things, I'm talking about an inherent trait. That doesn't mean that it can't be improved, like Shuri said from the first Black Panther. Just because it works doesn't mean it can't be improved upon. So I'm talking about things like that. So you have all these traits. Some people call them gifts, some people call them talents, some people call them attributes, this, that, and third. A lot of people fuss over the nature versus nurture. Is this a natural trait versus a trait that you nurtured? And the answer to that question is yes. You have traits that are naturally up, so to speak. But there are also traits that, as high as they can be, there is room for polishing, there's room for improvement, there's room for evolution. Are you doing those things? Are you becoming aware of them? Are you seeing where they're at? Are you seeing what level of cultivation needs to happen? Are you doing what is needed in order for you to be the best person that you need to be? I'm not just talking about this I'm living my best life thing. I actually can't stand that very now cliched phrase. Are you doing the work to establish that best life, that best you? Are you doing that? Are you learning what does and doesn't work for you? There's some places I love to go, and there's some places that I've learned I have no business being at. It's not conducive to me. It doesn't mean that I hate it. It doesn't mean that I am fearful of it. I just realize it doesn't line up with what I am, who and what I am. There's levels of conversation that I love to dive into, and there's levels of conversations that I'm not super well versed with. And I realize and accept that. Does that mean that I leave it where it is? And I'm like, oh, that's just me. No, even for me giving you that snapshot of me now, that might not be me later. And it's always this perspective of what needs to be worked on, what needs to improve, what needs to be sharpened, what needs to be cultivated, what needs to be evolved, what needs to be set aside. And all of those fall into the realm of putting things about you where they belong, like puzzle pieces, right? Are you doing that? Are you figuring out your pieces? Are you figuring out where they belong? Are you figuring out what level of intensity you're supposed to be working in them at? Are you figuring out how those factor into your family life, how they factor into how you deal with happy situations or conflicted situations? Are you figuring out how to put them into the place where they are going to serve you the best? That's not an issue of getting rid of what you deem as negative, because even your most undesirable trait has a use somewhere or ties into some other purpose or an aspect of you. So it's not about getting rid of the bad aspects of yourself. You actually can't, believe it or not. You can't, because they're yours. Just as much as the desirable traits are, they're yours. So I hope I'm helping somebody in putting this out there and saying, you can have this positive life. You can have this life that is fulfilling. And I don't want to go into the polarizations of positive and negative, but you can have this life that is fulfilling, not in spite of these negative occurrences or these negative traits that you figured out by themselves, but because of the fact that you have learned how to navigate them, utilizing the quote unquote good and bad, utilizing quote the both light and dark, and being able to apply those things, being able to about you to these, whatever life comes at you with. And those actually help you to determine and manifest what your purpose is. And there, let me tell you something, as somebody who moves in it the way that I do, there is so much freedom that comes from doing that. You will find me, you can sit with me for 5-10 minutes and find me to be relatively unfazed across the board. Why? Because I know how to handle what comes to me. I have an idea, I have a pretty solid idea, and I know enough to know that I need to learn more. But I'm at a point where I have this milestone of mastery to where certain situations come across me and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and that. But Chad, what about this over here? I'm gonna do this, and that. Coach, what about this over here? Okay, I'm gonna do this, and that. And then if I have to move this here, then I'll put this in that place there, and then I'll move this over here. And I am assessing and adapting. I'm assessing and adapting and adjusting, and assessing and adapting and adjusting. And all of that assessing and adaptation and adjustment is still within the framework of what I know about myself. I don't go too far outside of what I know unless I know that there is something else to be learned. And that is one of the other last keys that I'm leaving with you in this video. As much as I talk about the introspection that comes from that goes into figuring yourself out, the other key to that is, aside from doing the work to ask yourself the right questions, being expectant for an answer, and then seeing and holding on to that answer and internalizing that answer when it comes, is learning what you get from your involvement and interaction with other people. So in doing this, you're touching on what you need to learn from you, and you're also touching on what there is to be gathered from the unique perspective, from the unique standpoint of other people. And you figure out what to do with those as well. I'm giving you $1 million worth of game for free right now. If you want to learn more, and if you like what you're hearing and you want to learn more, you can reach me here on this platform, on all social media platforms as Unveiled Coach. You can reach me at my site, unveiledcoaching.org. And if we need to talk, let's talk. All right? Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take time to unveil a little bit more of yourself. All right? Talk to you later.